Lots of interest in the remarks of Pac-12 Commissioner George Kliavkoff Friday as the conference kicked off its media days. With USC and UCLA bolting for the Big Ten in 2024, lots of questions about what the future of the conference looks like. But Friday, Kliavkoff was on the offensive at times amidst reports that more teams could be set to leave.
With respect to the Big 12 being open for business, I appreciate that. We haven't decided if we're going shopping there yet or not. That remark was a reflection of the fact that I've been spending 4 weeks trying to defend against grenades that have been lobbed in from every corner of the Big 12, trying to destabilize our remaining conference. And I understand why they're doing it. When you look at the relative media value between the two conferences, I get it. I get why they're scared. I get why they're trying to destabilize us. But I was just tired of that. And yeah, that's probably not the most collegial thing I've ever said.
And for more on Kliavkoff's remarks and other storylines as the Pac-12 make their way through Media Day, let's bring in CBS Sports HQ senior college football writer Dennis Dodd. Dennis, it was seen as vitally important that Kliavkoff come out with a definitive statement regarding the future of the conference, given what has happened over the last few months. When you think about what he said in his speech, what did you make of the things that he had to say?
Yeah, I didn't hear that. I heard a very, at times, emotional, angry George Kliavkoff. Still, it's only been 5 weeks or so since that June 30th exit of USC and UCLA, and he's still dealing with that and the ramifications of it right now and where his league is headed, Jeremy. Right now, there aren't very many options for the Pac-12. He's had that soundbite where he accused the Big 12 of trying to destabilize his league. I thought that was significant in that he confirmed not only my reporting, but the reporting of others, that the Big 12 is interested in at least 4 of their schools going out there. And really the breadth and depth of the Big 12's interest. I've been able to learn this morning that the Big 12 now thinks it has a superior advantage over what's left of the Pac-12 in terms of media rights annually that they would earn per school. I've already reported that on the low end, the Pac-12, the 10 remaining Pac-12 schools could earn $21 million per year, up to a very max of $30 million per year. That's really where the number starts for the Big 12. And I got the indication they're not sitting on 12. And I think, we've reported that before. And I think that's what has George Kliavkoff so nervous. Is the Pac-12 going away? I don't think so. But that's one of the questions we need to follow up with him. Who in the conference is going to sign a grant of rights going forward to bind all the 10 schools together? I know Oregon and Washington wouldn't because they have options in the Big Ten right now. So it's a very tentative time for the Pac-12.
Yeah, and it's not just, as you mentioned, it's not just the Big 12. The Big Ten's also still looking at expanding and possibly taking on some more of the Pac-12 teams. So what does that future look like, Dennis? I mean, we're looking at expansion, obliteration, standing pat.
Yeah, I don't think the Pac-12 goes away. I had one AD tell me yesterday that he said our best and only option is to stay at 10. I don't know if that's the case. I think if they don't have any other options, SMU's been mentioned from Texas to get into the Texas recruiting grounds in the central time zone for their games. Then you add a couple. San Diego State, I'm telling you, is poised to join yesterday. They've gotten to this point investing in their athletic infrastructure. They have one of the best stadiums in the country going online next month or in September at Snapdragon Stadium. It's going to look with that weather and backdrop there, one of the best places to play in the country. And with the Pac-12 losing its Southern California footprint, perhaps San Diego State could deliver that back. I'm not saying they have the panache or, the viewers of USC or UCLA, but at least you're in the market. So I don't think they stay at 10. I think, worst case scenario, they become sort of a Mountain West Light or Mountain West Plus, if you will, just to stay together. I mean, that's what happened to the Big 12. They don't have Texas and Oklahoma, but at least they have 12 committed members right now.
And certainly Kliavkoff, if you go back and ask him sort of some of the decisions that he's made in terms of where the conference is headed, it'd be interesting to hear his remarks if he would change some of the things that he's already discussed. All right, let's get to the season ahead. 3 new head coaches in the Pac-12, and the biggest name on the marquee, of course, Lincoln Riley. How high are the expectations for Riley?
Well, I think people are projecting them as high as a conference champion this year. I don't know if I'd go that far. Obviously, they were 4-8, their worst season in over 30 years last year. And they get Lincoln Riley, the guy at the top of the heap of desired coaches. I don't know if they can win the championship. They're going to get close, though. He flipped the roster, about 43 new players in terms of recruits, transfers, everything else in a span of 6 weeks after he got hired. They've only got 85 scholarships, so do the math. That's half the roster. They're going to be much improved with Caleb Williams. They've got to get their toughness back. I keep saying that. The defense has to get better. They have to get back to USC traditions. Offensive line, whether it's going to be student body right or left or not, they're going to have to protect Caleb Williams and get to that point. They were picked in the preseason media poll that just got released from the media third. Utah is expected to repeat, and I think Utah has a heck of a chance of doing so with Cam Rising and all the people they have coming back from last year's Pac-12 Conference champions.
Yeah, they ended the season with a 4-game losing streak and, of course, finishing 4th in Pac-12 South, which, of course, no longer exists. Oregon's Dan Lanning also on the marquee of new head coaches here, Dennis. Oregon, a team that's being looked at by the Big Ten. Lanning called the Ducks the fastest-growing brand in college football. What was your main takeaway from Lanning's comments and the state of this Oregon program?
Very refreshing. It was good to see a new face at Oregon. Mario Cristobal had done so much great work there, getting Oregon to the place close to where it had been, playing in the Pac-12 Conference Championship game 3 out of the last 4 years, winning it twice. But Dan Lanning comes in as one of the best fresh new faces in college football as the defensive coordinator at Georgia, kind of this ruthless guy on defense who had really a generational defense, the best in at least 10 years, maybe 20 in college football. Now he brings that to Oregon, where they were never known for defense. But I think Mario Cristobal, having talked to him during the offseason, the pieces are in place there. They are going to be very physical. They do have the pieces in place. They just have to find a quarterback who can move the ball, and they definitely have the investment at Oregon. I wrote earlier this month about Phil Knight working the phones as soon as this USC-UCLA news broke. Phil Knight being like a telemarketer, trying to find a home for Oregon. That's what I keep coming back to. Oregon's, number one, going to be fine because they won't sign a grant of rights in the current environment, but they're going to end up as a player on the national stage, as you mentioned.
And he's starting with a statement game right away against his former team, the national champions, Georgia. He downplayed the opener a bit at Pac-12 Media Day. Take a listen to this.
Yeah, you know, honestly, we haven't spent a ton of focus on game one. I know our players are certainly excited to be on a national stage early and get to play, obviously, an elite opponent in Georgia that we're really familiar with. But guess what? They're also familiar with me. You know, but that being said, we're really focused on right now. And you can't play game one until you have practice one, right? So that's our next approach.
Dennis, how big of a statement would that be for Oregon to come up with a win against the national champions?
Oh, huge. And a big statement for what is left of the existing Pac-12. What did we always say in the early season about the Pac-12? They don't win the big games. Oregon did last year at Ohio State. This would be a statement that would be huge. They go in, Jeremy, as prohibitive underdogs in that game, basically playing a road game in Atlanta where it's going to be 90% Georgia fans in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And I think that's probably the way it will come out. But if they just show well, I think it does well for Oregon and Dan Lanning's first game. All these new coaches, Marcus Freeman among them, I asked him, it's one thing getting these jobs. At some point you have to sit in that chair and look around and go, I'm the head coach. I think he's gotten over that, but it's going to be interesting how well they play.
Yeah, that game against Georgia coming up on September the 3rd. Of course, the former defensive coordinator with Georgia. So, as Lanning said, he knows them and they know him. All right, Utah quarterback Cameron Rising, one of the player athletes at Media Day on Friday. A lot to be happy about last season as they won the Pac-12, but he's still stewing over that loss in the Rose Bowl, huh, Dennis?
Yeah, I asked him directly if, it was a loss, obviously, but what kind of stepping stone could that be? In other words, Utah's first time in the Rose Bowl, they made a tremendous statement, leading Ohio State by 2 touchdowns at one point. Now, Cameron Rising got injured and was knocked out of the game. They ran out of gas in the second half. But one of the more entertaining Rose Bowls ever. What could take away, and he and his teammate who were up on the podium said, we're pissed, but we didn't win the game. They knew coming in that they could beat Ohio State. I think that says significantly much about Utah and less about Ohio State. Ohio State has to rebuild the defense, and they're going to be a top 4 team. But I think Utah, if, again, the Pac-12 stays together, is going to be a national concern going forward. Kyle Whittingham's been there, more than 10 years, almost 15 years. He's built it to this point. And as I mentioned earlier, they are favored, and pretty heavily, to repeat.
Dennis, I mean, we're talking about the Rose Bowl. Where does the Rose Bowl go from here with all this movement?
Boy, great question. The minute USC and UCLA left, that was my first thought, beyond wrecking the Pac-12 for the moment. Because now you have USC and UCLA in the Big Ten who have played together in 46 of the 108 Rose Bowls. I mean, Jeremy, we're looking at, starting in 2024 and the next 2 years after that, the possibility of an Oregon USC Rose Bowl, which this year would be a conference game because of where they are. It damages the Rose Bowl. Where the Rose Bowl is going to be in the pecking order in the new the college football playoff expansion is unknown. I don't think they can make the demands that they want, which is always playing January 1st at 5 o'clock Eastern to maximize revenues and tradition and have the Rose Bowl parade in the morning. I don't think they can do that anymore. The way things are structured, they could never be a championship game, because if there's going to be a game in Los Angeles, it's going to be at SoFi Stadium, which it is next year. So the Rose Bowl's out of that link. So as things stand, they're going to be a quarterfinal or a semifinal every year, but they don't have their traditional partners until further notice. There's already been speculation. What about the SEC in the Big Ten going into that? You don't think SEC fans would bring a few people to Southern California for a traditional game like that? So it's up in the air.
He is CBS Sports HQ senior college football writer Dennis Dodd at Pac-12 Media Days for us. Thanks, Dennis. Great to see you as always. Great work. Dennis popping up on the Cover 3 podcast from time to time as well when big stories break, and he has been busy this offseason. The one constant in college football seems to be change. Now, for all the latest, you want to be listening to the Cover 3 podcast. The latest episode, which dropped on Thursday, dives into Big Ten expansion. Download and follow the Cover 3 podcast wherever you get your podcast audio.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.